Net present value versus profitability index. What's the difference? What are these? These are two of many different ways to evaluate an investment opportunity. Let's say you can invest so much money and you can get back this much in year one, this much in year two, and so on. Is it worth it? Are you going to make profit or are you going to lose your money? So net present value and profitability index are two different methods among many different methods that help you figure out whether it's worth investing your money or not. But they do it in a slightly different way. And the reason I will be explaining them together is because they have a lot in common. Okay, so how would we figure that out? Let's say we are given the following. The interest rate, or you can say it's the return that's typical for this kind of investments, is 10% per year. So typically when you invest your money will be grown by 10% every single year. That's what this means. Is the following investment opportunity worth it? And what we know is you can invest $1,500 today to get $400 back in 1 year, $700 in 2 years, another $300 in 3 years, another $500 in 4 years, and another $200 in 5 years, and that's it. So it's a 5-year investment opportunity. Okay, so we want to calculate it, the profitability, two different ways. First, net present value, which we call NPV, and second, profitability index, which we can abbreviate as PI. Okay, so we're gonna do the math two different ways, but you see how much the two methods have in common. What we want to do is basically find how profitable it is, so you can make your decision today. So it might make sense to discount all the future cash flows back to today, because today is when we want to make the decision, the investment decision, right? To discount multiple different future cash flows, the best technique is the cash flow approach. The cash flow keys in the financial calculator. For that, we need to enter cash flow 0. Then we have cash flow in year 1, which the display will call CO1, CO2, O3, O4, and O5. And that will be our 5 future cash flows with 1 for today. You are going to be using the cash flow keys for both investment valuation methods, both the net present value approach and the profitability index approach. What's the difference? For net present value, you're going to enter the numbers that are given. Negative $1,500 for cash flow 0, then $400 for cash flow 1, $700 for cash flow 2, $300 cash flow 3, $500 cash flow 4, $200 cash flow 5. For the profitability index though, actually let's calculate this first. Let's bring up the financial calculator, turn it on. To start the what we call the cash flow keys, we press the button CF, cash flow. We want to enter $1,500, and then we change the sign to negative by pressing the plus minus key. Enter. Down arrow key, cash flow 01, that's 400. I keep the sign as positive because this is the money we get back, a cash inflow. Enter. Down. Frequency, how many times in a row do we have 400? Only once, and that will be the case with the rest of the cash flows too. I keep the frequency at 1 and I press the down arrow key again. Cash flow 2, 700, 2 years from today. 700, enter, down and down again. 300, enter, down and down again. Then we have 500, enter, down and down again, and the last one is 200 in year 5, enter, down and down again. Then we press the NPV button, net present value, which is exactly what we are calculating now, net present value. It asks for the interest rate, which is 10%, it's given. I press 10, enter, down, and compute. $133.23. Let's write it down. So my NPV equals $133.23. Okay? What does it mean? How do we interpret this number? It's more than $0, right? It means the amount of money you get back in all future years is higher than $1,500 that you would need to invest today by $133.23. So you will make a profit. So the investment is worth it, right? Worth it because NPV is greater than $0. Okay? That's how the math works with the NPV approach. With the profitability index, it's actually very similar. Here's what we do. One thing we do differently is, for cash flow 0, we enter 0. And why? Because the first step is, we're going to do it in 2 steps. The first step is we discount back just all the future cash flows, as if there is nothing for year 0, no $1,500. And so in the cash flow keys, I will need to save my cash flow 0 as $0. And then 400, 700, 300, 500, and 200, just like with the net present value technique. And once again, I will be computing NPV at 10%. Let's do that. Okay, let's reset and start all over again. Cash flow button. Cash flow 0, we want to keep it at 0. I press enter, down. And then just like before, I press all my future cash flows one by one, leaving their frequencies at 1. 400, enter, down, down. 700, enter, down, down. 300, enter, down, down. 500, enter, down, down. And 200, enter, down, down. NPV, the interest rate is 10, enter, down, compute, $1,633.23. Okay, let's write it down. So what we have is the present value of all future cash flows, and we found it to be $1,633.23. So at this point, we have not considered the initial investment of $1,500, right? And so what we do next, the way we calculate the profitability index is we take $1,633.23, the present value of all future cash flows, and divide it by the initial investment, $1,500. And when we do that, we get 1.09. This is how we find the profitability index. What does it tell us? Because it's greater than 1, it means for every $1 you invest today, you get $1.09 back in the future. For every $1 you invest today. Is it a good investment? Of course it's a good investment. You want the profitability index to be greater than 1. If it's greater than 1, the investment is worth it. Right? So it's worth it because the profitability index is greater than 1. So let me put that in the parentheses, greater than 1. And typically the NPV in the profitability index will tell you exactly the same thing. And that's why I wanted to show kind of how the calculations would be similar but a little bit different at the same time.